Let's go directly to Norma, and I'm curious about something. Your vocal range as it falls these days. I mean, you're singing works such as Lady Macbeth, perhaps Donna Anna, this sort of repertoire. Norma fits rather nicely into this, particularly for your particular vocal range. Can you go into somewhat how you see your vocal range in regards to Norma and taking on this role?
By that, do you mean actual range tessitura, or do you mean weight, or all those things?
All of those things.
Yeah. Actually, I think that's one of the huge challenges of Norma, as so many of the Verdi women, because there has to be an element of innocence in the Verdi arena, and in Norma, this somewhat dramatic coloratura, as well as depthy stuff, as well as poignant stuff. So it requires all of, Norma is so scary because it requires all the tools in your toolbox. It's not like you can just go out there with a hammer and a wrench. You gotta have a level, and you gotta have a putty knife and a caulking tool. You gotta have everything. That Bellini man, if you actually look at the score and try to do what's on the page, it means you have to bring it. And I think one of the reasons that it might work well for me is I'm very technically oriented, and I always have been since the beginning of my training. But also, I have a hefty voice with agility, which is what's required by all those parts. Like, for example, if you do, say, for example, you do People Cast Gilda as a very light coloratura, but then you get into a lot of trouble, right? When you get into that big storm trio, and you get into the quartet and the big duet with Rigoletto. So there was a time in the past when we went to these roles, casting them with the heavier voice, and sort of took a pass on the coloratura part. Then they kind of flip-flopped and went to the fioritura part, and we sort of gave them a pass on the dramatic element. And of course, that's why Collis is such an icon in this part, because she had an astounding variety of technical tools, as well as a huge and delicate sound. So the guy Bellini is like, dude, he's just like, bring it, the whole 9 yards. You really can't fake it, and I don't think, and bring about a successful Norma.
Well, let's talk about Norma and the role itself, and let's get into it. And we'll begin with your first entrance onto the stage, and we begin just before Sediziosi Voce. Now, let's talk about your thinking on that particular piece, because you...
Scary.